Hello everyone, my name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over-the-board chess player, and in this series we're going from 1000 to 2000 elo in chess.com rapid games, where I'll be explaining my thought process as best as I possibly can for your education and entertainment. And today we have Vienna, not the Vienna Gambit, which would occur after knight to f6 and f4, but the Max Lang defense with knight to c6. People in the comments in previous episodes have said that they struggle against this system, so hopefully today I'll be able to show you good ways to play against it. Now, one of the common lines you will see is bishop to c5, probably the most common, maybe the second most common after knight to f6. And if you check the previous episodes of the speedrun, as well as the other playlist link below, which is all my other videos in the Vienna, then you will see what to play against that, as well as my full Vienna guide. But knight to f6, I'm going to go d3. And essentially what we're trying to do is get everything in order to play f4 later. So, I mean, we play d3, right? Whoa, b6. I don't think I've ever seen that. Ever. And I don't think it's a particularly good move. I think we should strike with f4 immediately. We want to play the move d3 just to open up our bishop so that we can take back the pawn if my opponent takes. Because the difference is there's no, like if all the way back here my opponent goes knight f6 and f4, black can't take because of e5, whereas with the knight on c6, it makes no sense to play f4 because after takes there is no e5 because we just hang the pawn. Okay, let's apply more pressure. Knight to f3. Now we are threatening to win this pawn now. My opponent may play the move d6, although that seems to leave some massive holes on his light squares. Okay, bishop c5. The question is, can we just go knight g5? Well, my opponent can castle, so for now, no. But this is a free pawn. My opponent may be planning the move knight to g4. That might be his idea. So I think we probably take with the knight instead, so that g4 is covered. Right? Oh no, if we take with the pawn and knight to g4, we can just go d4, actually. And my opponent can try and claim that he has pressure on e4, but I don't think it's particularly a problem. We also actually have ideas to take on f7, and after king takes knight g5 if the knight goes to g4, and we can win that with check. So that's pretty nice. I think we should go ahead and take. And yeah, I think knight to g4. We can even consider knight to g5, to be honest. Because if knight f2, probably queen h5 is game over. Or taking on f7 followed by queen h5 ideas. It all should be winning. I think my opponent has just lost the game on the 6th move, essentially. Yeah, he goes for this. Now, yeah, we have lots of options. We can take on f7 and try and do this and win the knight, right? We can do that. We can just play the move d4, cutting off the bishop's scope on f2, defending e5 from the two knights and attacking the bishop. Bishop to b4 looks like the most natural continuation. And then maybe knight to g5 is even better, because the knight is under attack and it can't go to f2. If knight to h6, defending f2, queen h5, g6, we of course take the knight. Castles? Maybe? I think d4 works though. So let's play d4. This pawn is well defended. The bishop will have to move. It could go to e7 to try and stop anything from coming to g5. But on bishop to e7, we probably play h3. Although that does allow bishop to h4. So maybe not. Maybe we have to leave the knight there for the time being. Bishop e7, maybe just bishop f4. And then we prepare h3, because bishop h4 can be met with g3 protected by the bishop. That makes a bit more sense. Of course, the idea of bishop e7 being to cover g5 so that we have no ideas of knight g5 going after f7 We also have no ideas of sacking the bishop and then knight to g5, because we will just lose a piece. Although we win this back, we'll be down a piece. If you're enjoying the video so far, by the way, please drop a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and it really helps to motivate me to keep making these videos. Also worth noting is after bishop e7, we could just castle, and then we are threatening to take, and after king takes, knight g5 with double check, meaning the king has to move. There's no time for black to take our knight. Then we take his knight, making sure our knight is defending twice, so taking doesn't do anything because we just take with our bishop. I know those arrows look very confusing. Point is, if we castle kingside, our rook targets f7, and knight g5 ideas become much, much stronger because we have 1, 2, 3 pieces all targeting the f7 pawn. Cool. Hopefully that makes sense. I assume my opponent just didn't consider d4. Maybe he only thought of h3, which, I mean, obviously I'm not going to play. I don't see why d4 wouldn't have been at the front of his mind, though. In this position, after knight to f3, he should have just gone d6 and been like, you know, I know my light squares are weak. I know my bishop isn't very good. I might actually play the move f5 there to lock the light squares shut and prepare knight to g5 ideas, which I was alluding to. But I think that would have been a better approach. Maybe even taking was better. Followed by bishop b4. Maybe bishop b4 straight away. I mean, it still doesn't look good, but maybe it is a little bit better. But as I said during the game, b6 I've never seen before, and it's probably just too slow. It's probably too slow, because black has gotten all his pieces out, but he hasn't had time to get his pawn doing anything, right? Of course, there was no need for him to hang a pawn, I know, but his position was still pretty rough, even if he did go d6 to defend his pawn, because f5 looked incredibly restricting, and f5 is a very common idea in the Vienna game and Vienna Gambit. Well, not the Vienna Gambit, because you take on e5 with the pawn, so you have no pawn to put on f5. But in the Vienna game and the Max Lang defense, this is technically known as the Berlin-Vienna hybrid variation, whatever that means. Point is, if the pawn goes to f4, sometimes it goes to f5, right? And it just squeezes the black position even further, opening up lines on the king side. And with the bishop on c4, it can become really difficult for black to defend. Okay, black sacks his knight. Well, that's a free knight. Queen h4, g3. Queen h3. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's that good. Well, we've got to take, obviously. We've got to take. g3 is the only move. Yeah. Now the queen has to move. Also keep an eye on the knight. Maybe he's trying to go for this. We could go bishop to f1. Bishop to f1 looks really strange, but it might just kick the queen very simply. And the queen only has one move. And then h3. If the knight moves, I trade queens. Or bishop back to e2. That looks really strong. Let me think. Bishop here. Because I can't let the queen into g2. Then we have issues. I've got to play this. I'm not missing anything. The queen is under attack. Black cannot check me. This is defended. And this is defended. Yes. So the queen has to move. The queen has one square. And then bishop back to e2 looks killer. Maybe he can take here? And after this, do something like bishop takes e4. Maybe that's the plan. We could just go bishop f4, to be fair. But No, that actually looks okay. Maybe g5, though. Maybe g5. Well, I'm between h3 and bishop to e2. If h3, queen takes... no, I think I'd rather have my bishop out. Here. If f5, then I assume we just take en passant. So bishop here. Queen e5 looks like the only move. Take, bishop takes. Oh no, my knight hangs. No, my knight hangs in that line. That doesn't quite work. Oh, I missed that. Here. Well, we're up a piece already. Let's not forget we're already up a piece. Yeah, that is true. Here. We could just go bishop f4 and try and be solid. If bishop f4, knight takes, we of course take the queen. If bishop f4, g5... Maybe bishop e2. Take, queen takes. I feel like that's actually a worse version. Although we're a move ahead. No, we're a move ahead. Then, can we play knight f3? Maybe? Maybe we can go knight f3? What else is on the cards? I can't really move this knight, because then he gets the f2 square. I can't really do that. Bishop f4 looks decent. Although, is bishop e2 better? It's just he takes on e5, and then I have, like, a lot of different problems, right? Whereas bishop f4 keeps his queen out of the game, and g5 also locks the queen out of the game. I mean, if g5, I can maybe even consider bishop back to c1, as strange as that looks. It wouldn't be the most ridiculous move in the world, and basically go, lol, your pawn's blocking your queen. And you can't take because I'll take your queen, of course. I think I like that idea. Let's go bishop f4. Am I 100% confident? No, but I'm also up a knight, right? And as long as my king remains safe, which my king is fine, I could even be like, I don't know, just my plan could be something like queen d2 castle queenside and just get my king out of the center as soon as possible. But I don't think my king's in any danger. He could take on h2, but then I just take his queen. So the knight can't move. The queen also can't move because it needs to defend the knight. Taking on d4 seems to solve my problems for me. Because, yes, you can do something like that. Sure, cool, very nice. But can I not just do this? You can give a check. That's actually an annoying check, in fairness. I can't castle queenside because the queen controls d1. Okay, knight to f3 is a threat. Let's not forget about that. I could sack the rook and castle queenside with a mate threat, but black probably just castles queenside, and I'm still winning, but why am I giving the exchange up? Here, 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 here. Rook f1. Queen back. I can't castle, which is annoying. Maybe I can play knight b5? But then he castles kingside? What about bishop g2? Oh, I still have to take it, though. I still have to take it. Let's do it. Bishop e2. Again, I'm up a knight. I should be fine. I should be fine. Knight f3 is the only move. I mean, if you play a move like queen h3, then I'm just going to castle queenside, and your knight is still pinned to your queen. So you have to play this, so your knight moves not only with check, but with an attack on my queen at the same time. So I have to respond to the threat. Otherwise, your knight is just pinned, right? I was considering king to f2, which looked fancy, but then queen f3, and I'm probably fine, but knight back to g4, and I've just got unnecessary issues to deal with. Why am I doing that to myself? Let's just go bishop e2. And try and be solid. I've also got the bishop pair, which is... I know I'm up a whole piece, but it's worth noting I've got the bishop pair, although knight to f3 will probably trade off that bishop pair. So, you know, that kind of makes that point null and void. He's still thinking. I'm a bit confused because I thought there was only one move, which is knight to f3. I may be wrong, but I don't see any other moves. Knight to f3 has to be the only move. And I have to take it because otherwise my opponent will take my rook. Like, for example, yeah, if he goes knight to f3 and I try to go king d1, he'll just win my rook. And he's actually mating me there, probably. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, let's just take it. Again, I can't castle queenside. I could try... King d2 is actually a cool-looking move. However, there is queen g2, which I don't love. I could go queen e3, but that hangs a rook. So I need to deal with the rook. So, rook f1. Queen g4 looks natural. And I'd love to castle queenside, but I don't see how. I might have to do it by hand. Again, I could go king d2. I don't want to, though. And to be honest, let's play this move. This is fine. Yeah, this is fine. He could try and be annoying, but then I castle queenside. So it makes more sense to evacuate via this diagonal to maintain control of d1. I could go queen d1 myself, which is an interesting idea. I like rook h1 to f1 because it also gets my rook off of this diagonal, which is a little bit, you know, dangerous looking. Knight d5 is an interesting move. Threatening knight to c7, of course. Although castle queenside seems to alleviate any problems. I can still go for my idea of putting the knight on f5, but I was thinking more in the context of him castling kingside to target g7. Queen d1 is tempting. Of course, a queen trade means I win, so he's not going to accept that. If something like this, I go queen e2. If queen d1, queen g6, queen e2, I still castle queenside. That looks really solid. That is really solid. I'm basically just trying to secure my piece up position now. And my pawn structure sucks in the center, which is annoying. However, although the pawn structure looks really bad, I'm not only restricting black's pawns, but also knight to d5 is very well supported, because if my opponent takes and I take back, then my pawn structure is fixed. It fixes my structure. So the pawns are ugly, but they actually control some really useful squares, and they clog up the e-file, which could be useful, because it's black's only open file. I think I like the move queen d1. Of course, black can't really take me, because I'll take with the rook. My rooks are on the open files. My knight's coming to d5 or b5. I mean, I don't see how black's planning to hold that position. If you move your queen to a square like h3, well, any square really. I'm just gonna go queen e2, I think, to prepare castling queenside. Maybe queen d3 is even better, because castle queenside could come with threats on the d7 pawn. My queen's probably better on d3 than e2. And if something like, I don't know, I say queen h3, queen d3, and queen g4, trying to continue controlling d1. Then I have queen f3. Then I have queen f3. Okay, he goes for this. I could go queen f3 straight away, in fairness. Oh, that also prepares rook to h1. But the queen does have the e6 square. Does have the e6 square, so not really that useful. I think queen d3 is what I like. Could my opponent go g5? No, I'll take it. And the queen on d3 is also good because it defends g3. It would have done the same on f3, but I prefer the queen on d3. I don't know why. Maybe I'm setting up unnecessary possibilities of skewers. But I don't think so. The queen also defends d7, which is worth noting. I didn't see that initially, which could be useful for black. If he wants to castle kingside and he doesn't want to give up the d-pawn, maybe. But this is difficult because let's say black... Yeah, he goes queenside, okay. Yeah, that was more so what I was expecting. Let's follow suit. Again, we're still up a piece. g5 doesn't do anything. We're maybe threatening bishop g5 ourselves because we'll be attacking a lot of different things and g3 will be defended. We can bring this knight in whenever we want. I don't think there's particularly any rush. We can play rook to h1 if we want, which, you know, will attack the queen and go after h7. That's an odd move. All right. All right. Does bishop g5 work? I don't think so. Bishop g5, rook f8. Maybe we can go rook f5, trying to disconnect the queen and the d7 pawn. I like the look of that, actually. Yeah, let's go bishop g5. I think we can exploit the d7 pawn. And maybe even the f7 pawn, because these are powerful battery. Well, this is a powerful battery. This is just a powerful rook. And like I said a few moves ago, the e5 pawn may look ugly because it's doubled and isolated, but it restricts black's ability to move his pawns, right? If this pawn was off the board, you know, if I drag it off the board, then f6 is clearly the best move in this position. Not only blocking the attack on the rook, but also meaning that f7 is not under attack. With the pawn on e5, though, f6, I can just take it, obviously. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think rook f7 is a bit too much because of queen e6. So instead, rook f5 looks very tempting. If something like g6, take here, that's game over. Rook f5, bishop c6 defending. That is playable. Do we have a follow-up? Maybe knight to d5? Trying to go knight to e7 check to swap the knight off for the bishop. If rook f5, bishop c6, knight d5, king b7. Knight b4, trying to play queen a6. And attacking the bishop. That looks decent. g6. Check. King goes back. Here. Rook f3. Oh, that prepares rook a3. That's quite strong. I think this is decent. Wait, is it in this position? No, sorry, after rook f5. After rook f5. Could I play it straight away, though? That's an interesting question. What if I flip the move order? If take, that's just good. d6 is a problem. Yeah, flipping the move order might be better. This is defended. I still have pressure. This bishop is perfectly fine. And, I mean, I'm maybe not threatening anything immediately, but I'm also not overcommitting anything. I can always drop my bishop back to f4 if I want. If he takes, pawn takes, again, I think d6 is a big problem for black. Because it's just securing so much space around his king. I could even plant my bishop on e7 if I really want, supported by the pawn. And if you watched yesterday's video, you'll know how strong a formation like that can be, because my opponent used it against me. f6 played. That seems not great. I think I can just offer trades. Taking with the bishop might be better. Or maybe the knight, actually. Going after d7. You know, because if knight takes, queen d7 is a threat. If d6... maybe e5? Is it easier to just take with the bishop, though? Or the rook? Don't know. I think I like taking with the knight. Again, this is defended. This is defended. This is very well defended. The bishop isn't under any threat. I can always drop back to h4 if I need to. Or f4 in some circumstances. I think e5 is strong. I think e5 is strong. Because if he takes, then I force some kind of trade of queens. And then the game is over. If he doesn't take, then I'm going to take him. If he pushes, then I just force a queen trade regardless. So that's a win-win. Well, not a win-win. It's a I win or I win. Because he doesn't win, that's for sure. Yeah, but now I force a queen trade. Which is exactly what I wanted. I'm happy to give up the pawn to secure a queen trade, you know? I'm more than happy to. And maybe my opponent can try and push this pawn, but I can always just go bishop e3 and crush any hopes of the pawn getting through. And again, I'm just up a whole piece at this point. Like, black doesn't really have any chances. This bishop is good, but it's also looking at absolutely nothing. It's got nowhere to go. Let's see how he deals with this. Maybe he'll try and make the most of the pin on the knight. Okay, he pushes. I think bishop e3. If this, I just take it, so that's fine. Yeah, let's play bishop e3. h4 might be a good try to try and create some counterplay down the h-file. That's one of the downsides of putting the bishop on e3. I no longer control the h4 square. If this, take, rook f1... Oh, that's also another move he can play. Yeah. I could just take it, though. I don't know why it took me so long to see that. And then oh, I'm actually even more winning than I thought. I can obviously take the rook here after king here, but I think stronger is just this. And then taking. Or I could even sack the rook. Not sack the rook, but take. And then sack the rook. And then it's game over. But very, very solid game. Hopefully this shows why I love the Vienna games so much. And even if your opponent doesn't play the lines that you want to see, like if you play the Vienna, you want to see knight f6, you want to see a Vienna gambit, but your opponent isn't always going to allow it. You need to know what to do if they don't allow what you want. This is one of those games. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and stick around to check out a short analysis. Okay, this is gonna look like I've cheated or something. I mean, you guys know I haven't, because you know the channel, you heard me talk through all my thoughts, but 96.7% accuracy. I didn't make a single bad move. No inaccuracies, no mistakes, no misses, no blunders. That's insane. Let's see where my opponent went wrong, though. So knight c3, knight c6, bishop c4. A big point of this opening is controlling the d5 square, right? Knight f6, d3. The main line, well, there's bishop c5 here, which is very popular. d6 is relatively popular, bishop e7. Knight a5 is one of the main lines. I recommend bishop to b3. Basically, you can't save the bishop. And then you open up the a file for your rook. There's some interesting lines where white is actually better. Oh no, sorry, not like this. Do you take first? Why can't I remember the line? There's some line where white is better here. It might be queen h5. Might be queen h5 going after the pawn. And then it's difficult for black to defend himself. Anyway, not many people play that. Instead, my opponent goes b6, which is just an inaccuracy, as I kind of assumed it was. So we strike in the center with f4. Bishop b7, knight to f3. Black has to take, because he can't defend properly. If he goes d6, yeah, there is knight g5, which I alluded to in the game. And black just simply can't defend his position, because this is not a normal fried liver, because I have so much control over the d5 port, over the d5 square. You're going to just lose everything. It's not even going to be close. Bishop c5 from my opponent. Again, he had to take, but we take on e5 with the pawn. Apparently you can do this, which is pretty funny. And then do this. That's so unnecessary. But fe5. Taken with the knight, there was a reason I didn't play that, and I think it was just castling. And I mean, I'm obviously better, but I'm not winning. fe5, though, poses the immediate problem to black, and black goes knight g4. I was considering these lines, right? Of sacking the bishop, doing this, and winning the knight back. And it's completely valid. I also considered knight g5 immediately, but there's actually just knight g takes e5, and black is fine. So d4 is the move. And my opponent actually found the best move. Fair enough. I was expecting bishop to b4. This is the move I was expecting. But I was like, well, I just kick the knight. And I mean, if the knight retreats, I can take it or I can just castle. And like I was saying, there's so much pressure in the black position, especially on f7. The game is as good as done. This is how deadly the Vienna can be. d4, he takes. Very smart decision. Knight takes. Queen h4 check. Knight takes e5 was better, apparently. And after bishop to e2, if he gives this check, g3. If he tries to stay around in the position. Again, I can go for this idea, which I came up with in the game, which I was very happy about, forcing the queen to trade itself, basically. We go g3, only move, of course, because otherwise we're completely lost. Queen h3. And yeah, bishop f1 is the best move, because you can't let the queen in. The second best move is queen f4, but after queen g2, queen f3 is the only move, and I don't know. This is a move that's quite funny. I suppose black does actually have to trade his queen off. Maybe this is even cleaner than what I did, although the computer prefers bishop to f1. The queen goes to h5, only move. Bishop f4, lovely. That is the best move. I'm very happy I saw that. I did consider bishop e2, but I was like, queen e5. If I take, then like bishop to d4, or even bishop takes e4. The computer's not convinced, but this just looks scary. It looks scary. So I thought, okay, let's boot the queen away. Bishop f4, and bishop takes d4 was a bit confusing. G5 looked natural to try and set some potential traps, but I thought that I can just move my bishop. There's actually bishop e3, because it can't be taken because the queen hangs. But I thought even bishop c1 was fine, which it is. And it looks silly, but I've essentially forced black to play the move g5, and now his pawn's completely out of position. I also thought about bishop to e2, and something like this, but I was like, why am I giving my opponent this pawn? I'm trying not to allow complications. My opponent takes on d4 though, makes my life easy. We take back, knight h2. Bishop e2. Computer suggests... What? And if you take, then, yeah... Alright then, yeah. I'm never ever playing that in a million years. Bishop e2. Knight f3. Take, take. Rook f1. Queen h5. The computer did actually like the idea of king d2, surprisingly. But I thought queen d1 was easier. Because either the queen takes or the queen moves, and then we just move our queen. Computer did prefer queen f3, interestingly. And then queenside castle, queenside castle. We're obviously winning, because we're up a piece. But we need to be as accurate as we can. h5, I don't really understand. We go bishop to g5, attacking the rook. Here, I was tempted with bishop e7, but I thought that I'm losing, or not quite as winning after this. Here, I have to find queen d7, rook d7, king d7, bishop d6, king d8, and this is apparently leading to a mate after knight b5? Because black just sacks everything. Well, the only piece he can sack to cause interference. And if the king goes to... after takes here, if the king goes to c6, then we have mate on c7. If the king goes here, then we have a windmill. If the king goes to b8, if the king goes to d8, then we take the bishop. But why be that complicated? Knight d5 is the move I played. The computer wanted to go rook f4, or actually rook f5, which was my initial plan. I thought bishop c6 was the best way for black to defend. Computer wants b4, b5. I thought knight d5 maybe, with ideas of this and this, and if like king b7, knight to b4 maybe, but I thought it was a little bit too complicated. Knight d5 immediately I thought was easier. f6, of course we take, knight takes f6, d6, and here I go e5, which isn't necessarily the best move, but I think it's the most simple. After de5, queen f5 check, secures the queen trade, e4, bishop e3, not necessarily the best move, rook e1 is slightly better. Rook hg8, I was expecting h4, I thought this was black's best chance of counterplay, which the computer agrees with. And I have rook h5 here, importantly, forcing a rook trade, and then the knight can probably go to f4, and we're just up a whole piece. But my opponent goes rook hg8, it took me a minute, but I realised the rook was hanging. And then, yeah, the game's over after rook takes f5, knight e7 check. My opponent resigns. But it was worse than that. It was worse because I can just do this and pick... Oh, I can take here Desperado first, actually. And then take the rook, and we're up 2 whole pieces. I hope you guys enjoyed this game. And hopefully, if you haven't played the Vienna Gambit already, or Vienna game already, this will encourage you to do so. If you want to learn exactly how to play the Vienna in a full video course, check out the video up here. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlist down here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in one of those videos.